Hello, good evening to you and welcome to News 360 live from the News Hub here at Adisowe Kanda. I'm Natalie Fort.
And I'm Issa Moni. Join us for the headlines in a moment.
Bodies of 3 children found in a parked car after being reported missing on Sunday at Elmina in the Central Region.
Four persons have been nominated for the Supreme Court.
Also ahead this evening, jurors beg judge to be excluded from being empaneled in Major Maxwell Mahama murder trial.
Works and Housing Ministry to access a $100 million World Bank facility to address perennial flooding in Accra and Kumasi.
In business this evening, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Emmanuel Asedu Mante, chid some local banks for petitioning government to have the deadline for the recapitalization extended. And on the foreign front this evening, South African police raid the compound of former President Jacob Zuma's allies, the Guptas. We've got the details of these stories for you, including news from the world of sports and entertainment. As always, this bulletin is streaming live all across the world on 3news.com, as well as DSTV channel 279.
All right, let's now focus on the first story tonight. The bodies of 3 children aged between 3 and 6 have been found at the back seat of a saloon car at Elmina in the Central Region. The children, Mamekia, Phil and Yao, failed to return home after leaving for church service unaccompanied by their parents Sunday morning. According to the police, the bodies, which have been deposited at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital mortuary for autopsy, had no marks, as was being speculated.
We'll bring you more on that subsequently. In some other news, the families of 2 children who were found dead at Betoy in the Volta region have rejected a police report on the cause of their death. They allege their children aged 4 and 5 did not suffocate to death in the abandoned vehicle as reported by the police, but were in fact murdered.
The bodies of the 2 children were found in a broken-down taxi near the Ben Oxford Academy. A preliminary police report indicated that the children were trapped in the taxi and died from suffocation, but there are allegations the victims were murdered in an uncompleted structure on the school premises. They could not understand how the children aged 4 and 5 would strip themselves off their school uniforms to play in an abandoned taxi during school hours. The development has created an easy calm in the Agotime-Petoi traditional area, leading to a protest to demand justice. Spokesperson for the deceased family, Reverend Samuel Egberumuta, disapproved the police report.
I asked the investigator a question. Can you tell me the reason why, 1, the suspect is still at large? 2, we don't even know the cause of death. So what have you done so far? So when he was talking to me, he was kind of stammering. So he said his CEO should speak to me. And when I was speaking with the CEO said, oh, they don't want to arrest the man now. If they don't want a situation whereby they will arrest him and then send him to the court, what evidence would they have against him?
The Ben Oxford Academy has been closed down following threats from residents to set it ablaze. Residents are pointing accusing fingers at the proprietor of the school, Ben Amuzu, and want him investigated by the police. The paramount chief of Agotime traditional area, Nene Nweketeku, has called for an independent investigation into the crime.
I find it difficult to say anything except that my feelings, 1, on behalf of the traditional area, we are completely ashamed such a thing should happen from our area here. Then 2, what strangers means is the government using to keep such a thing from happening in other schools.
Bodies of the victims are still in the police hospital morgue in Accra following the refusal of their family to accept reports on the cause of their death. Efforts to get the proprietor of the school, Ben Amuzu, to respond to the accusation have proven futile.
And I am not comfortable. These were the words of one of the persons nominated as a juror in the case involving 14 persons who've been accused of killing Major Maxwell Adam Mahama. She begged the court to be taken off the panel of jurors on the case. A report by Godfrey Tanam.
The court was left with one person to complete a 7-member panel for the Major Maxwell Mahama murder trial to commence. 3 individuals were nominated to complete the 7-member panel during sitting on April 16. However, the last person to be picked objected to her inclusion after she was approved by the accused persons. She did not give any reason despite having been asked by the judge. Counsels for the accused persons explained her demeanor showed she was going to obstruct smooth trial of the case if she was allowed to sit in. Justice Mariama Owusu granted her request adjourning the case to April 25 to enable the court get one more juror to complete the panel for the commencement of trial. Another nominee recused herself by writing to the court, although she had earlier agreed to be on the panel. Quite 7 persons who have to be endorsed by the accused persons, with each having the opportunity to object 3 times without stating reasons. Major Maxwell Adam Mahama was lynched by some residents of Dinshaw Boase in the Upper West Dinshaw district of the Central region in May 2017.
A global union known as Industrial has officially petitioned managers of gold fields to reinstate the 2,500 workers who've been laid off, describing the move as unfair and unacceptable. The General Secretary of the union, Walter Sanchez, who made this known, is in Ghana to champion a campaign against precarious work. Precarious workers are those who fill permanent job needs but are denied permanent employee rights.
Industrial All has more than 50 million membership worldwide. The Ghana Mine Workers Union, the General Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, and the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union are affiliated to the union, which has embarked on a campaign against precarious work across the world this year. Having been informed about the laying off of 2,500 workers of goldfields, the global union officially petitioned the management of goldfields to reinstate the workers.
Really something unacceptable. It's a real violation in the way of the companies should behave. I'm happy to be informed by agreement carried by the Minister of Employment and Labor and the company had took place so that they will revisit the whole process in a good manner.
General Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union, Prince William Ankra, lauded the global body for its solidarity.
Let's all be proud of what they've done for us when we had this Goldfield saga, and to the extent that it compelled our dear nation, the government, to really open up and talk. Even though we reached some agreement with the government and the business, that isn't the best, but it's opened up the doors to let everybody know that, look, you cannot take labor relations for granted.
The General Secretary, Walter Sanchez, expressed concern about low wages and lack of social security for some workers. He called on government to introduce industrial policies to address the increasing spate of precarious work.
Try to mobilize governments to create industrial policies so that the continent can be freed from the second colonization, which is now under the Chinese. It's like a second economic colonization that we're facing with the Chinese companies here.
General Secretary of the ICU, Solomon Kote, hinted the union intends to petition the global body on issues about child labor.
Even though we say Industrial All is the lead campaigner of precarious work, the other global unions also shuns it without any hesitation. What I believe that the question is leading to is that those companies should also have whatever support they get from the international also withdrawn from them.
The affiliated unions have resolved to fight against precarious work. Globally, precarious workers are subject to unstable employment, lower wages, and more dangerous working conditions, but rarely receive social benefits and are often denied the right to join a union.
Another news, President Akufo-Addo says Ghana and the United Kingdom will continue to maintain strong bonds of friendship and cooperation, share common values of democratic accountability, good governance and respect for individual liberties with the United Kingdom. President Akufo-Addo said this when he met the leader of the UK's Labour Party and leader of the opposition, Right Honourable Jeremy Corbyn, Member of Parliament, on the sidelines of the 25th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting currently ongoing in the United Kingdom.
The UK remains one of Ghana's most significant trading partners and a major source of foreign direct investment. At a meeting with UK's Labour Party and opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn on the sidelines of the 25th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, President Akufo-Addo pledged Ghana's unflinching resolve to cooperate and continue to share common values of democratic accountability and good governance with the United Kingdom. The two leaders also discussed issues bordering on the deepening of democracy amongst member states of the Commonwealth, the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Syria, United Nations reforms, in particular reform of the UN Security Council, Brexit, and an increase in trade cooperation between Ghana and the UK, and migration. Let's take a look at some other news this evening. 2 Court of Appeal judges and 2 legal practitioners have been approved for promotion to the Supreme Court. Now, the nomination of Justices Samuel K. Marfo-Sao, Mrs. Agnes M.A. Doji, both Court of Appeal judges, Nene Amegacha, former Ghana Bar Association President, and Professor Ni Ashikote, were approved by the Council of State. Nomination of a Supreme Court judge is done by Judicial Council for the President's consideration and approval by the Council of State. Nomination of a Supreme Court judge is done always by the Judicial Council for the President's consideration and approval. Now, following the approval of the 4, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is expected to refer their nomination to Parliament, which will, through its Appointments Committee, vet to determine their sustainability for the Supreme Court job. If approved by Parliament, the number of Ghana's Supreme Court judges will move to 16.
Right, another news tonight. Stephen Afote, our citizen journalist, reports from Tanoso on a new fixed poll after his first report.
On Thursday, 12 April 2018, I made a video report to TV3 on a bent high-tension pole at Tanoso. The report has yielded a good result. A new pole has been erected to save the situation. People in this area can now live in peace. From Tanoso in the Kumasi metropolis, this is Afote Stephen reporting for MTN Video Report.
Right, you're watching news from around the world and around the clock on NEWS360. Right here on TV3, and let's now take a look of stories that are yet to come from the news desk.
Workers and Housing Ministry to access a $100 million World Bank facility to address perennial flooding in Accra and Kumasi.
And also soon in business, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Emmanuel Asidumante, chides some local banks for petitioning government to have the deadline for the recapitalization extended.
And still ahead on the foreign front this evening, South African police raid the compound of former President Jacob Zuma's allies, the Guptas. Well, stay with us as we've got the details of these stories coming up shortly for you on NEWS360. Welcome back to News 360. Let's get into some news from the world of business now. A former deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, Emmanuel Asiedu-Mante, has chided some local banks for petitioning the president to have the deadline for the recapitalization extended. He argued any intervention by the presidency will undermine the authority of the central bank, a situation he says would affect the financial sector greatly.
Banking experts, economic analysts, and some business groups are hotly debating issues bordering on consolidation of banks in the country and the survival of local banks amidst stiff competition from foreign-owned banks. While the debate has been to have more local banks in order not to give the control of the financial system to foreign banks, others believe it is not about the number of indigenous banks, but their size and ability to control about 50% of both deposits and access to support the economy. A former deputy governor of the central bank, Emmanuel Asiedu-Mante, says the decision by some local banks to meet the president is unacceptable.
I'm totally against the banks going to see the president because I don't think this is something for the presidency to decide. The Bank of Ghana has a board. There are 3 governors over there. There's a board of directors composed of very competent people. They are capable of handling this issue. Now, the other thing is the minimum capital is not fixed arbitrarily. A lot of thinking goes into getting the minimum capital fixed. If you start a bank today, the sort of things that you need together before you open your doors to the public to do banking with you, 400 million will be nothing. In fact, it will all be spent by the time you open your doors to the public.
He is of the opinion that an extension of the deadline of the recapitalization for the local banks is not the way to go.
Things 2008, you're talking of 2018, 10 years, things have changed. And what they're doing, the negative side of it is that they'll be creating a class of shares, an inferior class of shares as opposed to a superior class of shares. I mean, banks, sorry, not shares. And I don't think that augurs well for them. Because you see, if you say that, you should be allowed to operate with 200 million, and another bank should be allowed to operate with 400 million. You are just saying that the 400 million bank is superior to yours. And if I know the system and I know that your capital is low, I'm not going to do business with you.
Based on their shareholders' funds, about 12 banks are likely to meet the minimum capital requirement of 400 million Ghana cedis by the Bank of Ghana, far ahead of the deadline, since they have more than enough capital in their balance sheet.
And let's stay in the banking sector, as some indigenous banks in the country are accusing past governments of deliberately stifling the growth of local banks. This comes after President Akufo-Addo set up a 10-member committee to look into a petition presented by the Association of Indigenous Banks to extend the deadline of the minimum capital requirement.
The local banks argue that governments have consistently overlooked the efforts of local banks and granted huge contracts to foreign banks operating in the country. This, they claim, has put foreign banks in good condition ahead of local banks, most of whom are struggling to meet the 400 million cedis capital requirement. The members of the association made the accusation when they met government at the Jubilee House to present a petition for an extension of the deadline for meeting the capital requirement from December 2018 to December 2022. Among other issues, the local banks accuse governments of giving contracts such as collection of money in key state institutions to foreign banks. They also pointed out that government is quick in using foreign banks as financial advisors during major projects. Citing Nigeria as an example to buttress their point, representatives of the local banks argue that Nigeria has deliberately made a policy where a huge percentage of government's contracts are awarded to local banks to help them grow and also help them create jobs. They maintain that situation is the opposite in Ghana, where major contracts go to the foreign banks. The local banks also shut down arguments that they must grow their capacity to undertake big-ticket projects. They stress that it is not the business of all banks to undertake big-ticket projects. In addition, they argue that the solution to challenges facing the local banks is not to sharply increase the capital requirement in a short period, but to ensure good corporate governance.
Let's turn to other stories in the world of business. The managing director of Tullow Ghana, Kweku Awotri, hints the oil company will invest $1.4 billion this year in the development of the 10 oil fields. Tullow Ghana and its partners have so far invested $12 billion in the Jubilee and Trinidad Inyera and Tome 10 oil fields.
Tullow Ghana estimates each new well at the Trinidad Inyera and Tome 10 oil fields offshore Ghana at the Cape 3 Point to cost $60 million. The 10 fields will have a total of 24 wells, with 11 of them already drilled before the maritime border dispute with Ivory Coast. Tullow is close to completing the drilling of its first oil well after the temporary prohibition of an activity of the 10 fields. Managing Director of Tullow Ghana, Kweku Awotri, indicated the $1.4 billion investment for this year will see Tullow Ghana increase its production by the end of the year.
Between Jubilee and 10, Tullow, with its partners, has contributed over $12 billion building these two projects. So we've at least contributed 6% of Ghana's GDP. There's been a contribution of over $630 million based in terms of taxes, royalties over the last few years.
On the maintenance of the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah on the Jubilee field, Kweku Awotri explained it will be done in a way that will not affect production.
I think that after the second shutdown in May, we're not expecting to do another one for a while. And, we've actually been able to fix an FPSO, fix a turret like that, and maintain production. By the end of the year, and Nana and the team can confirm, we should be close to 200,000 barrels a day.
Head of Human Resource and Business Services, Irene Asari, said the company is on course to localize in its operations. This, she indicated, will give way for Ghanaians to take over the entire operations in the future.
Have focused over the last number of years around how we can upskill our staff in that area. And a couple of things that we've done. We've got a high potential program that we've put leadership on, so it be it a technical background or leadership skills, we're progressing that. We are developing people for the industry and not just for Ghana.
In October 2008, Tullow was appointed as the Jubilee field operator and set about working with the partners and government of Ghana on developing the field. The first oil was drawn in August 2016, 3 years after the planned development for the 10 oil field was approved by the government of Ghana.
Minister of Trade and Industry Alan Tremanting says failure by Nigeria, South Africa and Uganda to sign the Africa Free Trade Agreement will in no way affect Ghana's trade revenue. He argued Ghana will still benefit greatly from the agreement since 44 African countries are still a big market. He was speaking on the sidelines of a book launch in Accra.
This month, 44 African heads of state met in Kigali, Rwanda, to sign an African continental free trade area. 10 of the African Union's 55 member states did not sign the agreement. Minister for Trade, Industry and Private Sector Development said the failure of 10 key countries to sign the agreement will not affect Ghana's trade revenue.
It does mean that if you invest in any of the African countries, you can produce and export duty-free, quota-free to any other part of Africa, which then makes this particular initiative a very strong stimulus for bringing investments onto the continent.
The sector minister stressed that the African Free Trade Area will go a long way to reduce barriers to trade, such as removing import duties and non-tariff barriers. This, he said, will boost intra-continental business. The minister is, however, positive that the 10 countries will come on board after discussions with their local manufacturers and entrepreneurs.
You are talking about integrating, for now, 44 African countries, the market of 44 African countries. So even without Nigeria or South Africa, I believe that the opportunities available to us, for those of us who have signed on, I think it's very significant.
If all 55 member states of the AU ratify it, the agreement will bring together 1.2 billion people with a combined gross domestic product of more than $2 trillion. It will also birth the world's largest free trade area since the World Trade Organization, which was formed in 1995.
And that rounds up the business news on News360 this evening. We've got some more business stories on our website. It's 3news.com. On to you, Isa, for some other news.
Thank you, Natalie, for that business report. Now let's look at some more stories tonight. And the Works and Housing Ministry is to access a $100 million World Bank facility to address the perennial flooding in Accra and Kumasi. The Sector Minister, Samuel Atachian, gave the hint on a tour of some drained sites in Accra.
Officials from the Ministry of Works and Housing and the Accra Metropolitan Assembly toured some 8 drain sites, including the 3 tributaries at Odona. The Minister of Works and Housing, Samuel Atachian, announced a cabinet decision and approval to go for a World Bank loan of over $100 million to end the perennial flooding in Accra. The minister, however, fell short of disclosing whether the money is a loan or grant.
There is no loan now. The only thing which is about to crystallize into a loan is what the World Bank is doing. But when we open the whole system up of competitive bidding, and we have what we call bankable projects, projects with bills of quantities and figures on it, and then you will see that this is how much it's going to cost to do X drainage in Suwedro, Y drainage in Kumasi and the rest of it, and it all goes through your big house, the parliament, and it will become bare for you to know that, oh, this is how much loan we've contracted to give this permanent fix.
The minister also announced that Cabinet has approved some 200 million cedis to fix the challenges with Accra's flooding in the interim.
We have decided that because of how serious the problems are and the emergency character of the problems, we'll be able to go faster than the law requires, so that we'll be able to start the dredging as quickly as possible. I mean, we're talking about a time frame in the neighborhood about 21 days.
Meanwhile, government still owes $27 million to Dredge Master, the contractor responsible for dredging the Koli Lagoon. The project director, Captain Ansar Ahmed Khan, says this has stalled work.
It started in 2015 November. Till date, I have not received one CD. But I'm hoping that some payment starts first, so that I can speed up.
The minister gave the assurance that the finance ministry will release funds for the project to continue.
Boat and canoe operators at Germany have embarked on an indefinite strike in protest against what they termed artificial shortage of premix fuel in the area. Their action has left over 80% of traders on the various island settlements stranded, with their goods going bad. Robert Abilba reports the situation is also affecting revenue mobilization in the South Dai district.
The premix fuel shortage at Germany and its catchment area is over 2 weeks. The people contended the difficulty arose when the supply of the commodity to the area was reduced from 10 to 4 tankers. The boat operators claim local premix fuel managers have taken undue advantage to cause panic buying, resulting in the fuel being sold at 170 cedis instead of 70 cedis. The South Dai District Assembly is also being blamed for not addressing the concerns of the boat operators.
Insufficient of fuel coming from the above, that caused those people to go and then look for it somewhere to bring it to Germany. And they were not buying at Germany here because the premix that is coming to Germany is not sufficient to us. And we have about 131 boats which have been arriving at Germany from Tuesday up to Thursday.
The current situation has affected trading activities in the area. Sheds and stores remain empty and locked, and the usual business activities are absent. Chairperson of the Fishmongers Association, Janet Notu, expressed their frustration.
Our business is collapsing as fishmongers. Customers from outside cannot come in to purchase our produce because our boats are not operating.
Premix fuel dealer Edmond Agbodanu has been explaining the challenge.
Due to the unavailability of premix fuel, the boat operators have resolved to mix in petrol and engine oil for their outboard motors.
Presiding member of the South Dane District Assembly, George Badalochu, wants in-depth investigation into the matter.
We want to see how best we can talk to the DCE. Because we cannot do anything behind the DCE. What we have to do is to sit down with him, together with the people who matter in this matter, to be able to find a lasting solution to this challenge. Because if shortage is the challenge in the system, then we have to find ways and means as to whether to make sure, as to how to make sure that the product is in abundance. So that if the product is in abundance, then they cannot have any reason why they should go on strike.
The Volta Regional Coordinator of Premise Fuel, Johnson Avolute, is yet to respond to the issue.
Right, let's go to the Central Region for this rather jaw-dropping story. The Central Region ranks second in teenage pregnancy prevalence in the country, recording more than 15,000 cases last year. Our reporter Ajwa Adubia brings us the harrowing story of a 14-year-old from Anumabo who is pregnant after having been defiled.
Fishing community. It recorded 126 cases of teenage pregnancy last year, with some victims aged between 10 to 15. 14-year-old Mamifwa was one of them, having been defiled. She is now 6 months pregnant, having realized it 2 months after she was influenced and forced to have sex with a boy at Patasi, a location in the town where nefarious activities of adolescents take place.
We used to go to Patasi in the evening, where the boys meet and call the pretty girls to befriend them. They sometimes give the girls money after sleeping with them.
Her mother's plan of ensuring the culprit is brought to book has hit a snag following the death of her uncle who was pursuing the case. She has no other support except that of her jobless mother. Mamiofua has dropped out of school but remains positive on going back after giving birth. Here, it is common to see teenage mothers beg for money to feed their children. The helpless queen mother of the Anuabu traditional area, Nana Dabo, blames parents, adding that constant engagement with the community has not yielded any positive results.
The Tradition Council and being as a queen mother have been trying. Even churches, I go to churches, any gathering, any opportunity I get, I talk about teenage pregnancy. Because it bleeds my heart when you see them. The defilement and rape, when it comes to our notice, it is beyond us. So we have to direct the case to the police or those of people.
Health facilities are struggling to cope with the unprecedented case in teenage pregnancy.
So they don't want people to even know. But you can't hide pregnancy. Whatever that happens, you will come and deliver, people will see it.
He said at such tender ages, the children are not prepared for delivery, and it comes with its maternal challenges. A program dubbed Who Got the Teenager Pregnant has been introduced in schools to educate boys on early sex and its related risk. It is estimated that 1 out of 3 girls in the community marries or is cohabiting before age 18, something that experts say is affecting the fight against teenage pregnancy.
Pretty staggering figures there, yeah?
Oh, well, very interesting story. I wonder if sex in the other areas, not on the coastlines.
In the urban areas.
Yeah, in the urban areas, whether they've also done a survey to tell us how much sex they have. We don't really know whether the coastlines.
Is needed in that regard.
Probably they manage it better in the urban area than the coastal line. That's why they get more pregnant. We need to know those details.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're watching News 360 and I can see Thierry lacking around, and after a few moments of commercials, we will join him for the latest on the world of sports.
Welcome back to News 360. Time for some news on the international front. 3 commissioners from Kenya's election board announced their resignation from the body on Monday, citing failure of the body's leadership and dysfunction in the organization. One of the 3 officials who resigned was the vice chairman of the body. The resignation of the 3 leaves the commission technically dysfunctional. Commissioner Rosalind Akombe was the first IEBC commissioner to call it quit at the height of the 2017's repeat presidential poll. Akombe cited external interference and lack of independence among commissioners. The commission was frequently at the center of controversy during Kenya's extended election season last year, in which around 100 people were killed. Last week, the commission sent its chief executive on 3 months compulsory leave, pending an audit, it said, without giving a detailed reason for the move.
In international news, more than 300,000 people are estimated to have taken to the streets of Barcelona to call for the return of the 16 Catalan leaders who are in prison or have fled the country in the aftermath of last October's unilateral independence referendum.
And you can visit our website, it's 3news.com, for some more international news. You're live here on News 360. We've got some entertainment news coming up for you shortly. Stay with us.
Entertainment tonight. After 5 years of breaking up to pursue solo careers, Hip Life Group reunited at the 19th VGMA, treating patrons to some old hits. We're talking about Prior here. Excited to see the collapsed music group perform together, fans urge them to wage a comeback, noting the positive prospects await them if they stay united.
It was refreshing to see Prior perform together after 5 years of going solo.
Have a problem. Prior we back one and a boom. All right, so for me, that thing must be their yardstick. That must be something to prompt them. Anytime one tries to detach himself from the group, there must something that must poke the other that, you know what, hey, remember that adage.
A member of the recently reconciled group, Wuta Efiye, wants Prior to rise above their differences and work together if they hope to get back to their glory days. Francis Doku is a celebrated showbiz pundit.
It was good. The question is this just for the performance tonight, or would they continue to be the Prior we knew of them to be? I hope it is the latter.
In as much as people hope to see the group reunite, others perceive Prior's performance as a camouflage.
I think that they are better together. I mean, I saw the other two, Prior Tia and Prior Tintin, perform at an event, and I almost wept. It was so horrible. I've seen also Eugene also perform, and it wasn't like when he was part of Prior. And we've seen them perform tonight, and it was good. I think that if they're wise, or if somebody would talk to them, it is better for them to be together and perform together than separate themselves.
Is Prior really back together? Well, attempts to get answers proved unsuccessful. The group was tight-lipped.
Charlie, for everybody. Charlie, we're not allowed to talk now. We'll talk at the right time. All right.
Well, still on the VGMA's 2017 sensation and one-corner hitmaker, Patapar arrived at the 19th VGMA with high hopes of winning all 2 categories he'd been nominated in. The unlucky singer, however, left disappointed with no award.
If you are my fans, I'll keep watching TV3, and it's going to be fire tonight. La Française Mission.
Mission.
Encore.
Most popular song of the year or Vodafone song of the year. That is what you have. And what is going through your mind right now?
As you know, Ankwana is trending so far, and I'm come to take the Vodafone award. I'll take it.
All right, Vodafone song of the year, Hip Life song of the year. Which one are you very optimistic of winning?
Oh, I'm going to take the Vodafone award of the year. I'm going to take, and I know I'm going to take it. La France Museum.
You're on News 360, and let's go back to the VGMA and let's find out how fashionable some people were that night.
Sister, I know be a brider. Give me one chance, make I be a fighter, provider. Toto for my man, make I be a pasta. Within Jumuti, make I be a sponsor.
Well, some nice fashion trends.
Something to talk about. And we were talking about Patapa and so on.
He made a real fashion statement.
Really?
He certainly did.
I think I like Miss V.
She looked lovely.
So confident.
Yes.
I like her style.
She looked lovely. Well, on that note, we round up News 360 this evening. Thanks so much for watching. There's more news on our website. It's 3news.com. And news at 10 this evening will simulcast on our sister station. That's 3FM 92.7. I'm Natalie Fort.
And I'm Issa Morning. Enjoy your evening.